Hello everyone, this is CJNovo992 and today we're back for another brand new video already. Trips, yeah, that's right, there's a new video already, and just a wee bit of a warning for the rest of December, you will be seeing a lot of this guy right here. I do apologise about that. I'm basically the YouTube equivalent of Last Christmas by Wham. No matter where you go, you'll see this guy's thumbnail on your YouTube home screen, and hopefully they'll keep it entertaining enough for you guys, and hopefully you do enjoy it, and hopefully there'll be a lot more smiling thumbnails than negative ones. But aye, there's previews, there's reactions, there's AGMs to discuss, so let's go ahead and do it. And I think what we'll do in the structure we'll put in places, we'll have a wee oppositional update. We won't dive into a real preview into the nooks and crannies because we discussed them twice last month in the space of a week. Then we'll get to the Rangers end, and then we'll break down the Rangers AGM, which was the big thing that happened today, and the time you get to demand answers to the questions that's in all the fans' noggins, or it should be. And we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But as we do carry on our journey for the rest of the video, if you do find yourself enjoying the channel at any time, please consider hitting that like button or hitting that subscribe button. Or if you'd like to debate that, would be absolutely sensational. It's been so good, honestly, just finding out the content and seeing people hitting over 1,000 likes a video, showing me you are enjoying the video has been so gratifying lately. So I greatly appreciate all the support. We're on an 8-week streak. Let's keep that bad boy going. That's if the video deserves it, of course. But let's go ahead and try to earn that like then, shall we? Again, a wee oppositional update. We look at Hearts a month on after playing them twice in the space of a week. And I think it's important to go back and you look at those two games because you've seen teams in the past have a bad week or have a bad result and it all starts to crumble. Hell, you go back to our bad week with Aberdeen and obviously the limits of how poor that was and how much that affected our confidence in the atmosphere around the place. But what about Hearts then, shall we? Because they came to Ibrox and they were minutes away from taking all 3 points and somehow left with nada. That there is a real hammer blow to the ticker. And then to just sprinkle even more misery on top of that, a couple days later in a semi-final where they had a genuine chance of lifting a trophy, they go absolutely swatted aside in a much more confident / dominating game. So you had a 2-1 grey-hair turner that required 2 90-minute goals to overturn Hearts. Then you go into a semi-final and Rangers walk all over you. What did that do to the Hearts squad, and how did they respond? Well, it's actually got to be said, the way they responded was almost perfect. In fact, I would say it was perfect because they played 3 games and they got 3 wins out of those ones. And I think that takes me into maybe my biggest talking point regarding this game of football, because if you look at all the games, who inspired them? Who dragged them? It's a familiar conversation here, but it's none other than Lawrence Shankland, because if you look at their 2-1 win over Motherwell, Shankland scored both goals. You look at the next game week, who scored the winning goal in the 1-0 win versus St Johnstone, it was none other than Shankland. And then in their most recent game of football leading into this one, who scored the winning goal versus Kilmarnock, it was technically Shankland as well. Even though it was given as an own goal, it was his shot that fumbled its way into the back of net. It was given as an OG, but I'm going to give it to the player that actually made the move, made the shot, and made the ball travel that way towards the net, which was Lawrence Shankland, which again has proven something we've talked about a lot on this channel. A goal scorer is the difference between dropping points in narrow, frustrating games of football and picking up all 3 and saying up the road, because that's what the last 3 games, it's not been perfect performances or anything like this for Hearts. No, everyone's been rip-roaring and showing a revenge attitude from what happened to them in the semi-final. It's not been that. They've just had a natural goal scorer up top that when the ball has fell to him, he slapped it in to the back of net, because didn't let modern day football confuse or distract you. It's not about what guys and laptops go ahead and say about expected this and this and this and this and this. The hardest job in football is scoring goals. It's always been that way and it always will be. That's why it makes goal scorers so valuable. And if you look at Hearts' upturn in form and how they've found themselves in the third of the league, it's no other reason than the fact that they've got a natural goal scorer leading the line. He scored in his last 4 games, actually, if you include the semi-final versus us. And then if you look at his last games versus Rangers as well, he scored in every single game this season versus us. The semi-final and obviously the one Ibrox. And that for me is definitely a worry when you look at how we play defensively and what they've got to attack. One ball bouncing anywhere, he's going to put it in to the back of net. So it brings a very simple game plan. Stop Shankland, you usually go ahead and stop Hearts, and that's the challenge that's going to be facing this Rangers end. But there's still some challenges to actually speak about, especially with Stephen Naismith, who's went ahead and lifted a manager of the month. I nearly said player in the month, but manager of the month because of that run results, which you could argue is granted because of how they were playing, being able to get it, jump up the league, fair enough. But there is still a lot of criticism and a lot of complaints about how he's approached the last two games versus Rangers. In fact, the way he started at Ibrox was fine. They were going forward, they scored the goal, and then they reverted to negative part of the ball tactics. It's never been the Hearts side, and also I'd say in the semi-final they really didn't do themselves any justice at all because of their negative tactics and negative approach. So for me, going into this game of football at Tynecastle, with the way that these games normally go, breathless, back and forth, it's going to be very interesting the decision that Naismith makes, because yes, he's holding the Manager of the Month award, but the fans haven't been happy how he's approached and tackled the games against the likes of Rangers and Celtic. So the approach for Naismith will be interesting. Will he go for it like we normally see at Tynecastle? Will we leave space for us to exploit because he's trying to score goals, or will it be a similar hope and prayer, kick the ball to Shankland and hope it grabs Sahan? Aye, that's it for the Hearts update. We're not going to dive any deeper than that. We know what they're about. We've seen them a lot recently, and they'll be looking to overturn the last two results with a strong performance at home. Now we get to the Rangers end, and I think what we'll do actually is we'll start with the AGM. Then shall we, which is the time that us as a fan base gets to take all the questions that's been burning a hole into our brains, who's been discussing it with everyone, who's been firing on every social media post, YouTube, wherever you want to go. It's the time that we get to look the board right in the eyes, the guys who make the decisions, the guys who's made the decisions that's perplexed us over the last year and a bit, and it's the time we get to hold them accountable. This should be good. Keywords being should be good. And the longer you watch, you'll see why. And honestly, all my hopes and dreams of holding this board accountable and getting genuine answers to A, B and C was destroyed within the very first question. Let me tell you a story, right? This is story time with CJ. This could be a Christmas story, if you will. I'd like to picture the guy who went ahead and asked the first question at the AGM, right? He's been hyping up, he's been thinking up all night, saying, right, this. He's been texting his pals, right, I'm going to hold them accountable. I'm going to ask them the big question. I'm going to do this. He's been bragging, troops. Then he finds out he's the first question right at the AGM. He's pacing back and forth and back, hyping himself up, ready to do it. The man walks up to the mic, ready to demand answers, and the only things that flutter out is him complaining about the size at Eddie House and the venue that the AGM is being held at, and he wants it to go back to the Wiz previously. I can't do this, man. I can't do this. And I'm not being dramatic, and I'm not making this up. It was Eddie House is too small for this meeting. It needs changed back next year and back to Armadillo. And obviously, no answer was given. That was the chance. That was the question. And again, it set the tone for what was an absolutely infuriating evening as a Rangers fan. Now, granted, the second question was a bit better as it was a bit more in task and actually a question that involves this football club and its fan base, as it was asking for an update on disabled seating, and James Bisgrove sort of gave maybe a PR answer that he's probably said in the past, but it's good to see some movement with and a wee bit of an update. And honestly, just a question that impacts the fans and the club, no individuals. And I feel like it needs to be briefed to people that these aren't the individual queries. It's supposed to be questions and taking guys to ask. Beale's risky signings, the folk that signed off on this, the injuries, the fact that nobody for the last 6 months has been the director of football. These were the questions that was asked. No, why is it no at a bigger venue? And the next question that honestly I've no got over. The question is, we are in Seville next week and we know what it can be like there. Do you understand how bad it can be? I have an apartment in Spain and stay with us in a spare room, James Bisgrove, and see what it's like to travel with us. We need to be safe in our travels. Can I find out why Bale was allowed to do this, or Bale was doing that, but we found out a Rangers supporter has an apartment in Spain, so delayed. Thanks for that, Alan. Now I'm going to skip over the likes of the climate change question, the net zero question, the question about booing the younger generation. We're going to skip all over all that. I'm just going to do us a favour and get to some of the questions that was genuinely asked properly. And shout out to Laura, by the way, right out the gate, the first genuine real question that was asked. And this was what the answer was. Are the board concerned at the lack of quality and sellable assets in the squad? Talk your talk, Laura Fox. And the manager will be supported with the money to improve the squad. John Bennett then responded, the board won't commit on the squad, however the manager continues to assess the squad, and come January, come the summer, the board will be ready to support the manager. We have players' contracts ending, which will see a recycling of wages being used. Also, it's not all about transfer budget, and that's an interesting one right there, because it tells us something we've worried about and wondered about all the guys on the hefty wages sitting barely playing games of football whose contract is ending. It looks as if we're actually going to be recycling them, which needs to happen and needs to do that. Again, he's not going to go into detail and tell us who we're signing. We're probably never going to get the answer, but to get a question that's holding the board and asking a bit of fire behind it was badly needed in this year's AGM. So Laura, thank you. There was another question asked about the media side of the game and the constant jabs and that at Rangers and why we're not doing anything. John Bennett basically came out and says they are doing things behind the scenes. They just don't want to become Statement FC and update us every single time they can do. And Statement FC is a funny quote, especially when you pair it with something he said later on where he seemingly took a bit of a dig at the Subway loyal at Rangers. Subway loyal and Statement FC. I think John Bennett's just confirmed that he's got a burner account on Twitter and he's reading everything that we're saying. But I'm going to finish up with the other relevant question regarding the squad that you might be interested in hearing. And it was a good one about the injuries and the medical side of the game. The question was, player seems to get injured, come back and then get injured again long term. The same players all of the time. I won't name names, but I think you know. They look at the grass, and get injured. What's going on medically? And Clement chimed in with this one and jumped right in and says, injuries are case by case. We look at the causes, human body, training, other things. Getting a good director of performance has been important. I see players working hard, including injured players. Tom Taylor comes from a club with a great reputation for improving players. Give us a few months and you will see less injuries. And that's what an AGM for me is. I want to know about that, like the likes of Tom that's now been brought into the football club from a club that's got a good reputation in improving fitness, etc, etc. There you are, troops. So for anyone wondering about the injury mess and that we've done, steps have been made. We just need to give it a couple months to actually implement it with the new training methods and the new decisions that's getting made on a player by player basis, which sounds pretty obvious, but it's obviously not been happening for the last 3, 4, 5 seasons at the football club. So that was important, I feel like that. And truthfully, that's all I've really got to say about the AGM. Again, we're not going to talk about individual bases. Obviously, it's important to those guys that's gone up and asking it, and fair enough. But for me, I feel like it was a missed opportunity to really ask some hard-hitting questions and get some answers to why A, B and C was allowed to happen. The likes of the Bales. What is with this ridiculous transfer risk that we've done this summer? Why did we move players on who were proven for people who has failed over the last 5 years spending 3 times as much? It would have been good to see the thought process and why it was allowed to happen. But obviously it turned more into personal queries and everything like that, which is probably what customer care and email is for. But that was it regarding the AGM, and the injuries thing gives us the perfect transition into the Rangers side regarding the game coming tomorrow, as we got a wee bit of update that thankfully there's no fresh injuries, which is actually a massive win for Rangers for once coming into this game from our last match versus St Mirren. However, there was an update regarding Raskin, who is not progressing as quickly as they hoped. Again, it's not a long-term injury, but they're having to monitor that a little bit closer. And again, the League Cup final looks like it's going to be a little bit too close for Raskin, which is a real shame because he's a very good player. But aye, they're trying their best to get him back, but no one else has picked up anything else. Everyone else is on their own training things and building their way up that way, including the likes of the Kamaroofs, etc, etc. So aye, here's hoping we can put a couple band-aids over the boys and get them to the likes of January, then move them on, as it's a very busy month. We need big performances and we need big players, and that's truthfully it regarding the game of football. That's all I've really got to say. We know how important it is, we know what Tynecastle is normally like, but again, what is Naismith actually going to do? If we play the game the right way, and if we start the game the way we should have started the last 3 matches, we should blow them away. But I just don't feel like we can limp into this game at Tynecastle with the atmosphere, with the record that they've got and the goal scorer they've got. That could paint a very, very difficult picture for us. But I feel like we will come ahead with this one. I'm going to go with the Rangers score of Rangers 2, Hearts 1. What about you? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down there in the comment section below, and your opinions on the AGM. Did they ask enough? Did we dig deeper? Did we find out enough from these players and management? You can let me know down in the comment section below, and as always, I will see you tomorrow after the game. Hopefully it's a happy one, and until then, I've been Siege over 92. Thank you so much for watching. All the best, and bye bye.